This week we're going to talk about the inciting incident and some of the tasks that it plays. We'll look at the first one. The first one is that your story needs somewhere to start, and it poses the thing that shakes the person. A lot of people say this: the traditional inciting incident is that it shakes the person out of their normal world. We're talking in Finding Nemo of Nemo going missing. In Vanishing Point, I think it was, his wife gets abducted. Joker does the bank robbery. That kicks off the Dark Knight story. These are the things that get the story going. So we've got an ordinary world, something happens, that's the inciting incident, and we're off to the races. That is one of the tasks for the inciting incident, is to get things going. The other task is to give people an entree to the film. It sets the scene of the film. It lets people know what it's going to be about. If you have an inciting incident, I forgot the word, an inciting incident where it's a building blowing up and there's all this action and then it's about a person just wanting to buy a caravan to go and start a journey because their house was blown up. Having an inciting incident, I'm going to have a problem with that. Now that I've said it wrong, I'm going to have a problem all through the video. Having an inciting incident which is so violent and so catastrophic and such an impactful image that sets up the feel of maybe like an action film, that is a bad entree to a film. It doesn't allow people to connect at the right emotional level in their head. If you went to a Mexican restaurant and the first thing they gave you was a soothing, cool something or other, it wouldn't really give you an entree into the Mexican food. You want that sort of lively, spicy sort of stuff that traditionally comes from a Mexican restaurant. And the entree is going to set you up for the rest of the meal. Your inciting incident is your entree. It allows people to attach with the right emotional thought in their head. I forget which one of the Marvel films it is. It's one of the Avengers films, I think. And it starts with like a battle scene through a forest. And it's just action and mayhem and people going through. And actually, I think it's a cold open. And they actually end the cold open, that is, with all the Avengers lined up together going through the shot. That sets you up. This is an ensemble piece, it's an action piece, it's an Avengers film. Right, I'm in, I'm back in my seat, popcorn, let's go. That's the correct entree, and this is the way that you need to think of your inciting incident. Let's go back to the lady looking for a caravan. We could have her house blow up, but we could also just have her walk on to a caravan lot. And she starts looking at the caravans. The salesman comes up and goes, "Going on holidays?" And she says, "No, I need somewhere to live." "Oh, okay. What's your budget?" She goes, "No, not very much. My house was destroyed by an explosion. Everything I own was in it. And I just need to know how much money I have to raise to get a caravan." We've got the inciting incident as her walking onto a lot. Now, the story of her getting a caravan couldn't have happened if she didn't walk onto the lot to buy a caravan. We didn't need the explosion. We could introduce the explosion by her just saying it to the person, and the salesman could be quite shocked. And he then becomes a proxy for our shock of the explosion that we would have seen. That can traumatise her. PTSD, we can have her relive, we can have her talk about it. We don't need to see it. It just has to exist. And it can exist in an explanation. As long as the entree, the inciting incident, ties into the story. So we've got it kicks off the story and it allows the audience to connect. The other thing it's got to do too is also set the pace and the emotional journey of the character. If we look at, and you can ramp these emotions up with other things that happen, and that can be part of an arc. If you're last week's episode, if you have an inciting incident where it's someone losing their wallet, okay, it kicks off. You can't then have them go, and this is also mentioned in Tools Not Rules, there has to be parity with a reaction. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what does losing that wallet mean? If you need to have someone go on a murderous rampage, you have to have an inciting incident that will kick them off to go on a murderous rampage. You can't have, this happens over here, then they want a murderous rampage. You have to gauge your inciting incident, that it makes sense to go into your film. I see this sometimes on forums. People sort of say, oh, I've been told that it doesn't make sense. My story doesn't make sense, that the character is not making sense. And the reason they're not making sense is because they're not following a logical progression of emotion. They've got this tiny little incident, they just needed an inciting incident, and then from there, whoa, they go off to have this huge thing. If you look at Star Wars, Luke already wanted to fight in the rebellion. He was keen to do it, but he couldn't because his auntie and uncle needed him and he was going to lose his opportunity and he was feeling bad with himself. And then once they die, not only does it free him to go off and fight for the rebellion, they were murdered by the Empire, the people that had raised him, the people that he loves. Even if he was an angsty teenager and was angry with them, he still loved them. They gave him shelter and food and compassion. He was going to go on a revenge quest. That whole revenge fell away quite quickly and he became the superhero. His actions wanting to go and fight in a war was commensurate with his family being murdered by the Empire. He wanted revenge. Once he started getting into the revenge business, it morphed into becoming the hero. It morphed into wanting to have a greater impact on the world. So your inciting incident, 3 things. A, has to start your film. Has to link to the film. You can't have something happen that has nothing to do with the film. It has to give the audience an entree. It has to give them something to connect to. It has to give them the mood, the feel, the what's going to be happening. The inciting incident sets them up. It is the entree. And then thirdly, it has to be commensurate with the rest of the story, which is a bit like the first one. It's got to make sense. You can't have a small thing lead to something big. You can't have a huge thing and like someone murders his entire family and then he goes and has lunch. They've got to make sense. So inciting incident is nearly as important as the rest. And it also has to link into the end in a way. You can't have someone have their family murdered and all these things at the start and you know it's going to be a revenge film, but then the end they find they have resolution, they find catharsis, they manage to get rid of all their issues by taking up oil painting. If you look at Mad Men, Don Draper starts off as Dickie. He's in a war. He loses himself. He has to pretend to be somebody else to get out of the war, that his entire life is a lie, and he's haunted by the fact that he's not really who he says he is. He's not really Don Draper. He's actually Dickie, I can't remember his last name, and this haunts him and haunts him and haunts him, and finally he finds peace by turning his back on his entire life and just finds peace in a hippie commune. He finds meditation, he finds peace within himself because he was internally tormented and found peace. And that's the other thing too, the difference between a dilemma and an obstacle. People say, a flaw has to be an obstacle. A flaw is a character trait, and that is a dilemma. A dilemma will stop people from doing an action. An obstacle is a physical object. It physically stops them from achieving their stuff. I'll probably do an episode on that, but think of that way too. Does your inciting incident work as a dilemma, or does your inciting incident work as an obstacle? That's it. Thank you for doing these things. Share if you're getting value out of these. Hit the subscribe so you keep getting them. Comments have been great, and until next time, keep writing. Bye, guys.